Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be going over the Hexfire Shamshir. The Hexfire Shamshir is an interesting weapon, and I think that you'll agree as we go over it that it's got some interesting uses. So right off the bat, you'll notice that the Hexfire Shamshir is an exceptional level item. It is a damage of 61 to 102, which is not bad for level 33, with a dexterity requirement of 58 and a strength requirement of 58. Relatively low on the strength and level requirement and dex requirement, and quite honestly usable by just about anybody. It seems to be aimed, honestly, at like a mage class kind of a character, and as we go over it, you'll understand. It is a very fast attack speed item, and this is because, of course, it is a Shamshir. The Shamshir is definitely an interesting item because it is designed to be very fast. That is the entire point of the item. So you know it's going to be fast on just about any character that wields it, even characters that have penalties to that sort of thing, and it's it's just kind of how it works. So we have +3 to fire skills right off the bat. So +3 to fire skills will work for any skill that is considered a fire skill. Vengeance on the Paladin, Enchant, the entire fire tree for the Sorceress, the Fire Claws on the Druid, the entire Fire Elemental side on the Druid tree. It will even work for Corpse Explosion, believe it or not, because Corpse Explosion is considered a fire skill. So if the skill has any kind of fire component to it, it will add to the skill. This also works exceedingly well on the Fire Act 3 Mercenary, which has gotten some very nice buffs recently, and they added Enchant to, which is very great. We also have 160% enhanced damage on this, which does vary from 140 to 160. Not a huge variable there of only 20%, and quite honestly, not really the weapon's main focus is its physical damage. We also have an additional bonus damage of 35 to 40, which is added basically flat to the weapon. And then we also have the plus 10% maximum fire resistance, which is very nice. This means that when you put on the item, it will increase your maximum fire resistance by 10%, which means that you can, of course, hit that maximum fire resistance easier. We also have ignores target's defense on here, which is actually very, very nice, and would come in really handy for like an enchant sorceress or a fire claws druid or somebody who is trying to hit targets. It is important to note that ignores target's defense doesn't work the way a lot of people think. Basically, what ignores target's defense does is it removes attack rating from the formula to hit a monster. The formula to hit a monster is still there, and there are still other obstacles in the way. Like, for instance, if you're a relatively low-level character and you're fighting a relatively high-level monster, the high-level monster is going to have a much higher percent chance to dodge your attack, essentially, than a lower-level monster would. And ITD does not take that out of the equation. So you can still miss with ignores target's defense if the monster is high enough level above you. It also does not work on bosses, and this is important if you're specifically trying to hit a boss. ITD will not help you there at all. We also have fire resistance of 25%, which is always very nice to have in combination with plus max, because just because you get plus maximum doesn't mean you can reach the maximum. And giving you the little bump of 25% means that you'll be much more able to reach that maximum fire res quota. We also have some level 6 Hydras on here, which can be cast. There's 36 charges. They're not really going to do very much damage, but I suppose if you were a sorceress, maybe with Fire Mastery, they might actually do some decent numbers. All in all, though, it's kind of just what's the term? An addition, a kind of just like a fun little thing to have, and not necessarily something that's very important. Now, the Ethereal version also exists, and the Ethereal version has 74 to 133 damage. Not a huge bump in damage there, but definitely a nice one. The requirements on the Ethereal version are always 10 less at 48-48 instead of 58-58, and of course the same level requirement. Now, of course, you can socket this at the side Larzik, and you could put something nice in here, like maybe a Fire Facet or something like that. Could definitely come in handy. for this particular character to have a who is, you know, obviously using a fire skill to have a fire facet in their item. To upgrade this, you're going to need a pull rune. You're going to need a lum rune, and you're going to need a perfect emerald. And this is going to get you from the exceptional level item to the elite item. I believe the elite item is called the Atigan, if I remember correctly. And do I not have any lum runes left? I will be right back to go and find myself some lum runes. Alright, so let's get this thing upgraded, shall we? So you're going to need a pull, a lum, and a perfect emerald to get this bad boy upgraded. And it's going to go from 61 to 102, 58 strength, 58 dex, level 33, to the 120 to 157 elegant blade, 122 dexterity, 109 strength requirement. You know, it doesn't really seem like it upgraded that really great. I feel like the dex requirement going up to 122 was a lot. Strength requirement not so bad, but quite honestly didn't really go up as much as I thought it was going to go up. The Ethereal version could also go up nicely from 74 to 133, 48 dex, 48 strength, level 33, to 164 to 214, 112 dexterity requirement, 199 strength requirement, and level 54. Now, the important thing to note here is that this particular weapon seems to be pointed directly at a character who needs either A, fire skills, or B, ignores target's defense. These are the two main takeaways that you want to think about with this particular weapon. Either A, you're trying to give somebody +3 skills either early on or late in the game who needs +3 specifically to fire, like an elemental druid, a fire claws druid, maybe a holy fire paladin, maybe a an elemental enchant sorceress. You know, there's a lot of different options. The ITD, of course, comes into play, basically making it so that you can, of course, utilize that very nice damage, this elemental damage, without having to have a high amount of attack rating to do it, which is also very nice. And quite honestly, this is where things get interesting, is that the sword is very fast, it has ITD, and it has plus to skills, which really makes it just an excellent weapon for elemental damage-based characters. Characters who don't necessarily care much about the physical damage side of things, who just want a sword that is really, really fast. Unfortunately, this weapon doesn't have any increased attack speed on it natively, which is a bit of a downside. And to get some more increased attack speed, you would have to put a shale rune in it, which is definitely going to speed things up a little bit. Unfortunately, with the Ethereal version, if you actually wanted to use it as a weapon, you would have to put a Zod rune in it, and that, of course, is going to, number one, bring up the level requirement, and it is also going to, number two, eat up that socket, so it's not going to get any faster. So you're sacrificing speed for damage in this scenario, and I'm not really sure if that really is a good choice. Now, where could you potentially find yourself a Hexfire? Let's take a look over on Silo's Pen, and let's see if we can figure out where we can find ourselves a Hexfire, if we're going to try to specifically look for one. I'm actually using a Hexfire right now on my Act 3 Fire Mercenary, specifically to help him out with his enchant, because that was the reason why I got him in the first place. So we're going to go with a 400% Magic Find setup. I'm going to assume that we're actually target farming this particular item, which is usually the case when it comes to the Hexfire. You're trying to find it for a specific purpose, and the specific purpose is, you know, sometimes like the Act 3 Mercenary, maybe you're making a Holy Fire Paladin, maybe a Fire Claws Druid, whatever it may be, you've got a specific purpose in mind. I could totally see rocking a Hexfire on a Fire Claws Druid with like a Medusa's Gaze on your shield, so you have lower resist proccing, That could be a really interesting little setup. So right off the bat, we're going to ignore the quest flags, and it looks like Andariel in Nightmare difficulty at a 1 in 355 chance. It's actually a really good chance. And Bale in normal difficulty at 1 in 369. And Nightmare Mephisto at 1 in 392. A lot of really good chances here. Nightmare Diablo, 1 in 409. I mean, quite honestly, Nightmare Diablo is super easy to farm. So that is a really good option. But Nightmare Andoriel is also really easy to farm, and she also drops Sojas, and she has a better chance to drop it than Nightmare Diablo, and at a lower level too, which means that you could potentially farm this as a low-level character. That's actually a really good option there, Nightmare Andy. We're going to go with Nightmare Andy. And as for the super uniques, looks like the Nightmare Cow King has a really good chance of 1 in 905. And as for the rest of these guys, I mean, Bone Ash, Treehead Woodfist, those are two options that are in Nightmare difficulty that are fairly easy to get to, fairly easy to kill. Bone Ash in particular, you could farm him over and 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 over again because he's always in the same spot and he's very easy to get to, right there at the inner cloister waypoint. He's always standing around the altar inside the cathedral. So very, very easy choice for farming. It also looks like the Eldritch the Rectifier in Nightmare difficulty drops it. I'm assuming as well as Shank. Yeah, as well as Shank. So you could also do Eldritch and Shank. And I would assume that Pindle is also on here. Yep, there's Pindle. Ooh, Pindle in normal difficulty can drop this item. Well, that is rather interesting. So if you really wanted to get your hands on a Hexfire really early, Pindle Skin in normal difficulty can drop this with a pretty decent percent chance, too. As well as Nightmare Pindle with only a slightly worse chance. Not bad at all. Anyway, this particular item certainly is an interesting one, and I think you'll agree with me that when you're looking at a fire skills option, +3 fire skills is a lot of skills, and can definitely come in handy for a lot of different characters, including the Act 3 Mercenary to get you a higher level enchant so you get more attack rating. I could see using this on an enchant sorceress. I could see using this on a fire claws druid, a holy fire paladin. I could even see utilizing this perhaps on a necromancer just to get an early +3 on your corpse explosion if you didn't have anything else better. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we are talking about a Hexfire. And keep watching.